Ignition sequence start. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff.
Hey folks, welcome to A Friendly Orbit, the podcast that draws us together no matter how far we fly. I'm Ceres,
And I'm Theia.
and we like to hang out. And it's hard to find time to hang out, so we decided to make a podcast where we would share our interests as an excuse to hang out. So, Theia, how you feeling this week?
I don't know. It's been rough. A lot of problems. Really feels like everybody wants to be my enemy. You know?
I spare you no sympathy on that one.
Yeah. And how are you doing?
I feel like there's a little, I'm actually feeling light. There's a weight off my shoulder. There's a magic in the air, perhaps some kind of arcane force levitating my problems off of me.
Sounds dangerous.
So dangerous, in fact, that we should probably move into our topic.
Yeah.
So what's our topic this week, Theia?
Yeah. For those who couldn't tell already, we're talking about Arcane Season 1 this week.
Hey.
As Season 2 is about to come out, I want to talk about how the first season is a masterpiece.
And you probably see the runtime right now, so get ready. It's gonna be a doozy.
Yeah, it's gonna be a doozy, but I'm not going to talk about all of Arcane. I want to talk about how it's a real masterclass in efficient storytelling.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay. So, as context for the readers, I watched a few episodes that Thea recommended to me, and
I was going to ask you that, but
yeah, as intro homework, and I'm inclined to agree with this take so far.
I must say I don't think it's a very controversial one.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Okay, so a little bit of context: Arcane Season 1 came out in 2021.
Big spoilers ahead, I'm assuming.
Yeah, big spoilers ahead from here.
If you haven't seen it yet and you do want to see it, don't listen to this. What are you doing? You know better.
Yeah, exactly.
Why did you click on this episode title?
Go ahead and watch it and then come back. Once you wiped all the tears. So Arcane Season 1 came out in 2021. I don't know if you know it, but it was so successful it retroactively spawned a video game franchise in 2009, but I hear that's not that good.
Okay, sure thing, buddy. It's crazy. It's like 2021 is so old, and it was so successful. You would have expected like Season 2 to come out like 2 months later. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't look too much into its production history because I feel like that might be even in an episode in and of itself. But from what I know, this project was delayed over and over again, which is why it's so good, because they had a lot of time to like work it and revise it before it was made. Like it was in production limbo, and then somehow it was made, and then somehow it was so good. And also, when I said the game is not good, I don't mean the game is not good. I played it; it was not for me. But what I have heard is that the lore, like the writing for the game, is abysmal because obviously it's not a narrative game. So they just kind of slapped some lore articles together. And I have not heard positive things about it from people who enjoy the game.
As a non-expert, I can't fully comment, but I did play Legends of Runeterra for a little bit, and the intro missions of that game actually feature some of the characters from Arcane interacting and hanging out. It's it's sort of, but it's not done as well. So I would tendentially agree because it's like Vi's the good guy, Jinx is the bad guy. Jinx is blowing up people in the Undercity, and Vi has to go and beat up enforcers until you can find Jinx and try and stop Jinx, and then Jinx gets away at the end. Very classic sort of hero, like superhero, supervillain storytelling. Not particularly nuanced. And although, I mean, the one part I mean, first off, the game is quite good in my opinion, and the voice acting and stuff did its best. So, but still, overall, from the setup, I would not say it rivals Arcane.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard the comment like you would think that the League of Legends is like the shitty tie-in video game to a great show. And not that somehow this was spawned. This great show was spawned out of that. But
You simply cannot take one of the most popular video game franchises in the world that has made so much money and call it a shitty tie-in. You just simply cannot do this.
Okay. I take
Actually, you know what? You can't do it in episode 1. You can do it in episode 4, okay?
Okay. All right. Well, I planted my flag.
Okay.
And now
and if you feel like Theia planted their flag wrongly, you can email us at afriendlyorbit@gmail.com. All one word.
We're not big enough to be controversial yet.
No, probably not.
Okay. So, Arcane, the series now has received massive critical praise, and I really think that it's a masterclass in efficiency, because it juggles great characterization, a tense and intricate plot, great themes, great character drama and arcs, enticing world building, and it all tied out in this like beautiful looking show with distinct looks and like an intricate visual language of visual symbols and themes. And I don't know, I feel like that's not allowed.
That's not allowed.
That's not allowed. That's usually not allowed.
Yeah, so
usually, you need to commit.
You only get one of these. You don't get all of these.
Yeah, you get
Is
two
that what
or
you're saying?
three at best. You know,
2 or 3 at best. Well, so I mean, I kind of agree, right? In preparation, I rewatched some of the show, and I was floored. I was floored by the quality of the show. I did not remember it being anywhere near as good as it was. And when I was like, oh yeah, season 2 trailers are out, whatever, I was like, okay, yeah, I mean, Arcane, that was a fun show, I guess. And when I went back to rewatch it, I just alone, and I don't know if you were already planning to talk about this, but just alone, the first scene of the show is so amazing. And I was like watching it and I was like, wow, this is really amazing and communicative. For those of you who maybe don't remember, we see the bridge between Piltover and Zaun and or Zaun. I like to say Zaun as a semi-German. And we see cops coming down it, and we see riot gas, and we see violence against the population of the Undercity against citizens, but we also see citizens fighting back. We see Vander with the gloves just absolutely going ham on a cop, and the whole focus of the scene though is the sisters. It's Vi and Powder, and I didn't realize this until they revealed it at the halfway or 3/4 through the scene. Powder is singing the score that you hear, which is a song that, if you listen to the lyrics, is basically saying, give me a fraction of your wealth and it'll be the greatest treasure in the world to me, and I'm not going to use it to be mean to you. I'm not going to use it for anything bad. I'm going to cherish it. Give me a penny and it'll be my fortune, which is of course kind of like what the whole conflict between Piltover and Zaun is about. And so it's like, so immediately you understand the conflict between Piltover and Zaun. You understand that it's cops versus citizens. You understand that there's vigilantes. And then you see and you understand that Powder and Vi are just children thrown about in the chaos of this violence. And then you see their parents are dead, and Vander throws down the gloves. And I was like, whoa, so much of this show is in this first scene. I understand so much of the show. I thought to myself, well, it's also probably because I've seen the rest of the show. And I watched the rest of the show. They never expand on any of this shit, as far as I can tell. There is no moment where Vander recaps that scene for you. It's like, no, they get it. They know it already. Why did you stop fighting? And he goes, it's because it's what I had to do. He doesn't go, oh, because their parents died and this and that and da-da-da. And he gets into it, and he explains the scene. He just
absolutely.
says, because it's what I had, because I had to. I had to stop fighting. And you, the audience, you already know why. You know why. You saw You saw the look in the girl's eyes. You saw the parents dead on the pavement. You saw the cop bleeding in Vander's hand, and Vander's like, "What's this for? What am I doing here? What am I gaining?" So I was just
Mm.
blown away by just like the first scene, and it was a good ride for the rest of the evening.
Yeah, so you told me that you were planning on watching episode 3, and then I kind of gave you my suggestions for one episode to watch.
Yeah.
So how much did you watch?
I watched episode 1. I
Mm-hmm.
watched episode 3.
Mm-hmm.
Which, by the way, I think it's crazy that you told me not to watch that one.
Well,
So much context for how people grow up, because that's right before the time skip. So
yeah.
I actually found that quite useful. I actually started watching episode 4 and was like, I'm confused. I'm going to go back an episode. And I was like, okay, I get it now.
Mhm.
So I watched 1, 3, 4. Then I'm not sure what the next number was, but it was the one in which Victor tries to control the hex core.
I don't know.
And because I just like Victor, and I was like, oh, this is a Victor episode, this is what I'll watch. And then I watched
Everyone likes Victor.
He's
I'm
great.
I'm just gonna
He's a
plant
great
another
man.
flag.
He's a great man. And then I watched the final episode as per your
Okay.
recommendation. Also, because season 2 is coming, right? So knowing where we left off.
Yeah.
So yeah, I watched. I was planning on watching 1 or 2 episodes. I ended up watching 4.
Sounds
Here
like
we
you had
are.
a great night.
I did.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I mean, it's the first scene is fantastic, absolutely fantastic. Also, I will point out that when I gush about a show, it's probably for a reason. And if you don't think that the show is that amazing, it's because you should watch it again.
Oh, because you're never wrong. Is that it?
Well, the trend is I am not.
Oh, okay. Sure.
But yeah, you are. But yeah, you're right. And I have kind of found 3. I want to look at 3 aspects of the writing of Arcane here.
Mm-hmm.
About to talk about how effectively it communicates its story. You kind of touched on one already a little bit. It's visual storytelling with the topic with the first scene, but I want to start with kind of, let's call them character tags or character labels. I think for every story you can set kind of you can assign each character a set of tags or labels that define them and make them unique compared to the other characters in the show. For example, in the case of Arcane, let's say Jace. He's young, he's a scientist, he's a Piltover citizen, he's a Hextech enthusiast, and he's a politician. By the end of the show, he is.
Mm-hmm.
And the same can be done, for example, for Lord of the Rings. That's nothing groundbreaking. Frodo's a hobbit, and he is not a fighter. He is young. He's not magical. And Legolas is an elf. Gimli is a dwarf. All these things that make them unique and separate from one another.
Sure, the characters have characterization.
Yeah, exactly. But I would argue that almost all characters in Arcane can be described by a very small set of labels and their opposites.
Mm-hmm.
You can kind of split the cast in along dualities in different ways, and that allows to create a sort of tapestry of character foils and opposites, which is very dense. So, for example, I brought up I bring a couple of ones, and I will kind of list characters who are very similar and share a lot, but differ in a single attribute, more or less, to kind of present my case. So we have young versus old. You have Vi and Vander, Silco and Jinx, Jason Hammerdinger, Victor and Singe, Grayson and Marcus, and Grayson and Caitlyn. Grayson is the cop in the first third who has made a deal with Vander, and Marcus is the young cop who eventually gets corrupt. Yeah.
Yeah, that woman, who has the deal with Vander. she's I recognize her voice, and I
Yeah,
think
she's
they
in The
made
Expanse.
exactly,
Yeah,
yeah. And I was
she's
like,
the
oh, I
actress from The
love this
Expanse.
actress. She was
Yeah,
so
she
good in
has
The
such a
Expanse.
good voice. She has such a good voice. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So you can
you should get
continue
her
the.
on the podcast.
We should. As like a guest or like as you.
Just to replace me.
Yeah.
She's just like, I'm Ceres.
Yeah, then you can just go like, fuck you, Theia. No, 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 I have the deep voice. You underestimate my depth. Yeah. So Piltover, then you have Piltover versus Zaun. So you have Marcus and Caitlyn, Jinx and Jace, Victor and Jace, and Vander and Grayson. And then you can draw a duality between Hextech and Shimmer, Jace and Singe, and Victor and Jinx, arguably. You can, I mean, a lot of my pairings here, I mean, I'm sure you could nitpick some of them or you could find more. But this is all to say that, like, for every character, every character has several foils, because the kind of the set of like the set of characterizations for these characters is kind of so tight and so intricate. Everyone has
Yeah,
a
I mean,
lot
I
of.
think
Everyone
having
has.
these characters split along these traits also helps show the division and the fractionality in the show, which I think is a big part of real life politics, but also just a big part of Arcane. I remember being struck the scene, the whole episode where Vander dies, which I
Yeah,
believe is episode 3.
it's 3.
The episode you recommended I don't watch for some reason.
Listen, it's a great episode. It's one of the better ones, but I don't think that it's one of the ones that helps me make my case to you and helps you understand my case. So that's why.
So one of the things I noticed is I was like, these are Zonites fighting Zonites. I'm like, who's suffering here in the end? Who's losing here in the end? It's guy, everybody loses. I mean, Silco wins specifically, but it's like Piltover does not lose in that episode. Zaun loses. Zaun loses allies. But also Vi loses a father. Powder loses a father. So I thought that was interesting, right? I mean, the show does a good job at showing that the Undercity isn't all one place, and it by having, and that only works because you have a split between who is Silco and who is Vander, right? And their differences is, I think, the core tension basically of that episode. What with the line Silco has, like,
You will die for a cause, but you won't fight for one.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
That was it. That was the line I was trying to remember.
Yeah.
Um.
Yeah. So I need to stress.
Yeah.
I watched this show like 3 times.
Okay.
One time I was with my partner at the at a movie like a cinema marathon.
You can call Copernicus by name. That's
Copernicus.
You can
do it. Yeah, that's their name.
Yeah, I agree with you also that, like, these characterizations are these, like, you can nitpick, like, whether these characters are exact opposite or exact foils. If it was a matrix spreadsheet, it wouldn't be as good,
No, of course it doesn't work like that. But yeah, I mean, yeah, in that episode specific, I think that you can draw the biggest the distinction is between peaceful and warmongering characters. So I have that one as well, like Vander and Silco, obviously, but you also have Vi and Jinx post time skip, and Mel and her mother. So
I'm surprised.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you haven't mentioned him much at all, but he seems to me like, I would say, one of the core cast of characters. Who do you feel Echo contrasts with, and how?
Echo is a bit of an exception. The more I try to fit him in, the more I feel like Echo is kind of doesn't fit. His character, like his design, his whole faction, the color green, is very much like a third part in this in the tapestry of the characters. And I really feel like Echo doesn't take sides. He's on
Mm-hmm.
his own side and he's his own thing. And I think that's what makes him very distinct, and that sort of fits the role he plays in the story.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of exempted him from these dichotomies.
I
Um,
think
but
in the episode where him and Vi are together, I
Mhm.
think we see that I feel like they're two sides of the same coin. Not him and Vi, Echo and Caitlyn. Or is she Catelyn or is she Caitlyn? She's Caitlyn, right? It's not
Caitlyn,
Game of
yeah.
Thrones. Shows do weird things with names, and it's like it's
Yeah.
Caitlyn, but it's not. Yeah, I think like they are kind of two sides of of a coin in that episode, at least, where neither one of them is with the establishment of their respective faction, and they're both suspicious of each other and have like their own agenda, their own thought of like this is how I think it needs to be done, and trying to work it out. Now, Echo has a whole team and is much more established, and Caitlyn is much more on her own, But I feel like they if you sort of wanted to make like a tension diagram of that episode, I think it's them both in tension, even though they're quite similar because of the core difference. One is a Pilty, one is a Zonite, and Vi is sort of in the middle trying to make things work.
Yeah, I think that's a fair. I think that's a
But I think
fair.
overall, I
That's a
think
fair
you're right.
assessment.
I feel like Echo overall doesn't really contract or doesn't have as much conflict with that many different characters. And this might be a hot take, but I don't think it is. I think it's because Echo gets it. I feel like it's a lot of the other characters are caught up in the division and the tribalism of each of their sides. And I
Mhm.
feel like Echo has his issues and is a human being, but I feel like his approach is the one that's most likely to actually work for Zahn, right? Like, I don't think Silco's vision for Zahn, I believe he's a true Zahnite patriot or whatever, right? Like, I think he does truly believe in his cause. I don't think he's like his subordinates, the guy with the golden jaw,
Mhm.
who just cannot learn.
Yeah, Finn
that
is such a dummy.
I mean, I really feel like after the episode where he almost gets choked to death, you would be like, all right, I'm going to take a back seat for a little bit. I'm going to let the, wait, he just goes for it again.
Yeah.
But, like, I don't think Silco's vision is ever going to really work. Like, ever going to make the lives of the people he says he represents better. And I don't think Vander's vision really works either, because it feels like it just delays the inevitable. And I don't think Vi or Jinx really have a vision. They're much more caught in their sort of personal things. I think they're still developing as characters, like what their vision is going to be, what side they're going to pick. And I think season 2, obviously, well, I don't know, Vi is a cop in season 2. So it feels like, this is the development of the characters. They're going to start to take sides and emblematize these sides. But so of all the people who we see who are natural leaders in the Undercity, I feel like Echo's the only one who gets it. And that might be why he has less tension with some of the other characters, because he can compromise. He does not trust Caitlyn even a little bit. But
Mhm.
with Vi's help, he can reach compromise. By the end of the episode, he's fighting for his life to defeat Jinx and save Caitlyn and Vi. So, like,
Yeah.
and he almost died. And I was like, when he was fighting that episode, I was like, oh God, does he die? I'd be like, oh man. And I'm watching the scene and they're fighting, and I'm like, okay. I'm starting to like turn into a statistician or a gambler. I'm like, all right, Jinx definitely not dying. So the best we can hope for in this fight is neither combatant dies. How likely is that? And I'm like, it doesn't seem that likely. I was pretty convinced he was gonna die, especially when did the end thing where he's charging at her and she's firing the bullets. He dodges
Mhm.
once, he dodges twice. And the third time, I'm like, he's gonna get nailed right in the chest. But he makes
No,
it out
he's
alive.
not. He makes it out
Very
alive.
pleasantly surprised, makes it out alive, and it seems to me like he plays a big role in season 2 based on the trailers. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Anyways,
I think he is an absolute fan favorite. When I was at the movie theater,
yeah.
like every time the fire lights were on screen, the
Mm-hmm.
audience were losing their mind,
Mm-hmm.
and the reveal that it's him, like, got the biggest, I think probably the biggest, like, cheer. Maybe second only, but I'm not convinced, to the reveal of Vi at the end of episode 4 when Caitlyn goes to prison and we
Yeah.
get grown up Vi. Yeah, By the way,
This is
you know Jason Victor?
yeah.
Yeah, Victor. As soon as Victor shows up, the audience loses their mind again. Jace, not a single, not a single clap. You could hear the flies. You can hear flies fly in the movie theater. Bone dry silence. That's what it was.
I think they're both big League of Legends characters too, so that's funny. It's not like one is like I think Victor is I think both Victor and Jace are major characters in the game, so that's funny that it's so split. But also, like, I think Jace is a really interesting character. I like him as a character. He totally deserves that. He totally
Yeah.
deserves that. But that's one of the things I would say about Arcane also, like highlighting some of the things that you said. I think
Mhm.
it might be better even on a rewatch than on the original watch. Now, I watched
Yeah.
it originally 3 years ago, so maybe I don't remember just how much I liked it. But when you're rewatching it and you kind of know a little bit where things are going and you see the web of tension mounting, it feels almost like, you know, they're just showing you, they're not telling you, but it feels like you're reading the Wikipedia plot summary. You're like, I
Yeah.
am hitting every single beat. I get it. So on a second rewatch, for example, it's not a surprise to me at all that Echo is the Firelight leader, right? You
Mhm.
see him tinkering with equipment. He's spying on them. How does he spy on them? With gadgetry. Why? Because that's his character's thing, right? Every time a character does something in the show, it feels like they're doing it in the way their character would do it. Like everything they do seems to characterize them somehow. And then he
Yeah.
sees I forgot his name, but Vander's friend and Echo's employer as a child.
Yeah.
He
Benzo.
Benzo. He sees him get murdered, right? And you see
Mhm.
the impact it leaves on him. And so then by the time you see him again, where he's like super anti-Silco, you're like, okay,
Mhm.
the only thing I know about the leader of the Firelights is they're good at tech and they don't like Silco. It's like, who could it possibly be? Yeah, it's got to be. It couldn't be anybody but. I mean, it could be a new character, but then why the mask?
Yeah.
So it's got to be
Yeah.
someone we know who hates Silco and is good at tech. Who could that be? It can only be Echo. But they're subtle with the time skip too, and he's introduced early in that episode, so I think that's part of it. You're like, huh, okay. A little bit of time seems to have passed, and then later it's like, oh no, a lot of bit of time has passed. When you see Vi
Yeah.
as an adult, you're like, oh, okay, it's been a while. So
Yeah. Yeah. I'll on this point, on the point of kind of like efficiency with like labels, I will say one more thing and then we can move on. When a new like I was maybe a little bit jarred in the final third of the show when Noxus is introduced and the mother of Mel Medarda shows up. So I'm like, we're introducing a new country now? This is the point of introducing a new country? But it works because like their presence is entirely framed within the conflict that already exists and the duality that already exists, because she's here to essentially push the development of hextech weapons.
Yeah.
So she's not here for anything else than her interest in conflicts that already exist, already have been established,
Yeah.
and she exists to mainly interact with characters who are already involved in this. So like Mel and Jace.
Yeah.
And so it still all comes back to the struggle between Zon and Piltover. And so it works.
Hex tech weapons. So many good intentions, so many bad decisions.
Yeah, I mean, I must say, like, the show can be subtle in a lot of ways, but the scene where Jace and Victor show to Heimerdinger their cool tools that they developed,
Yes,
like these massive
absolutely.
gloves and the laser, and they're like, this will make with the work of artisans and miners so much better. And I'm like,
Which,
oh
to
my
be fair,
god.
I feel like the laser is the only one that actually has a reasonable application. Like, we use, in real life, we use laser cutting saws, and, that kind of makes sense to me. But the gigantic fucking hammer and the power gloves, I was like, okay, they're not being subtle. This laser is going to be on Victor's back, and he's going to use it to carve up some poor sod. And this has got to be a Victor specific sort of, like, he's like Doc Ock or whatever in the game. This must, like, I don't know what Victor looks like transformed. I've been trying not to spoiler myself, but yeah, that was not subtle. I was like, this must be part of his.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
P.S. On the foils front, Echo and Heimerdinger. That's one I forgot.
Yeah, Echo and Heimerdinger. I mean, I don't know how much they actually share. I mean, they are arguably the most opposite characters. I wouldn't classify them as foils because they really don't share much. They're young and old. Piltover and Zon. They're but the only thing they share arguably is that they're neither aligned with Hextech nor Shimmer.
Exactly. And what they
But
also share is they're both artificers. And there's that scene at the end where Heimerdinger is like, or towards the end, where Heimerdinger is like, how did you establish so much in so little of a lifetime? And he goes, well, you'd be surprised what you can do when your life depends on it. And this is slightly spoilery. In the season 2 trailer, there's a line where Echo says something, I'm paraphrasing, something along the lines of, sometimes to like make a step forward, you've got to leave something behind, and then he pulls a switch. And that's not something Heimerdinger would believe, right? Heimerdinger does not believe in risks. So I think actually they're kind of both sort of centrist aligned leaders within each of their groups, and they're both artificers and care about the future of technology, which is essential to leadership in this world. But young, as you were saying, young, old, topside, undercity.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
But what
Yeah,
they share is they're
wouldn't
both.
go as far.
I think they're both fundamentally like they both kind of have a heart of gold, in my opinion. They're both they're both well intentioned, and like Heimerdinger's misguided more so than Echo, I would say. But I do think they share that. I do think they're going to be friends, and then maybe have a little bit of a rift in season 2. I think something like that could easily happen.
Yeah, I think they're both misguided in different ways. I think Echo is misguided in his like belief of leaving, kind of being able to leave the past behind. Because he keeps telling Vi to let go of Powder. She's Jinx now. She's Jinx. Stop caring about her. She's Jinx. That's what he keeps repeating to her. But then when they fight, ultimately, he can't take her out because she's Powder to him.
He can't leave it behind either.
He can't leave it behind either. And
so,
I think that's where he is misguided. It's not in the political sense, but he believes that he can rise above it all in a way that he can't.
I think the show narrative might end up proving you wrong, though, a little bit, just because in the season 2 trailer, Vi is like, by the way, in case, as you can tell, I watched that trailer like 10 times and like hit pause over and over again, which on a TV remote
really
is not easy.
Fascinating. I maybe scratched it, like watched it, but I try to forget everything about it. Oh no, I didn't watch the trailer. I only watched the teaser. I didn't
teaser,
see.
This is one of the interesting things. The teaser is 1 minute long. The trailer is 2 minutes long. I think the teaser has way more content in it than the trailer actually. Especially if you're like pausing frequently.
I have forgotten everything.
There's a moment in what clearly looks like Fight Stage 7. You know what I mean? It's like this big hall with collapsed pillars and ruins and stuff like that. It's just like the place you have a fight in a TV show or even in D&D or something like that. You're like, this is a battle map. Yeah. And Vi shouts out, she goes, Jinx, kind of like Jinx show yourself kind of moment. And Jinx replies back, finally got the name right. So I don't know, again, it's just a trailer. But I feel like the direction the narrative is going is Powder is gone. Powder is Jinx, and it's not reversible, and it's not going to be fixed by a little bit of sisterly love, which would match the status quo of Lord of the Rings, League of Legends.
Yeah, it's similar
now
writing
we're really
quality.
Gonna get replies. Now we're really going to get replies.
But you, I don't think that that's really like. Yes, I don't. I agree with you. I don't think that that's really a counterpoint to what I said.
Okay.
What I would say is like, I'm not saying that he is wrong, Jinx, that Jinx is still Powder. I'm saying he is wrong in the idea that you can't just kind of like forget about it, that you can't forget about your attachments. And in season 1, actually, there's also Silco who does the same. Silco tells Jinx to let go of her love for her sister because she's not Powder anymore, she's Jinx, and ultimately he dies by the hand of Jinx, because even if Jinx is still Jinx, is Jinx and not Powder anymore, Jinx also loves Vi.
Yeah.
So
No, I think you've got a point. Those two characters have quite an interesting parallel in a way, or even those three characters, right? Two of them still love Powder and can't let her go, and one of them still loves Jinx and also can't let her go. You know,
yeah,
as in can't betray her.
yeah,
And what I mean, side note, what an amazing villain. I mean, I thought that was just such a good this
yeah.
this
Silco is my
motherfucker
favorite
looked
character.
yeah, this motherfucker dresses like Dracula and has a red glowing black eye. I mean, could he
Yeah,
be any more evil? Hey, here's my friend's reference. Could he be any more evil? Um but he really has a heart and he really does care. And
yeah. He's introduced as this like mastermind villain who will stop at nothing.
yeah.
And then in episode 3, he hugs Powder.
Yeah.
And then in the final episode, he tells Van to the statue of Vander that Vander was right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it was such, and that was such a moment when I was watching the beginning of the series, like the first episode 1 and 3, and even of 4 a little bit. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
wow, these characters are very different from how I remember them because I remember them as how they ended, and I was like, well, shit, that's called character development. Right? I mean, all of these characters develop pretty. I mean, I guess Vander doesn't develop. Vander just fucking dies. No, he develops. He ends up fighting. He takes the serum. Oh my god, they all develop. It's masterpiece. All right, let's move on to the next point.
Yeah. So the second one is about visual storytelling. You
Mm-hmm.
already talked about the silent storytelling of the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I also just have Zon and Piltover, completely different aesthetic. You
Yeah.
can always tell where a character is from just by looking at
Yep.
them. Across the spectrum, Piltover, marble and gold, and
Mm-hmm. And blue.
it's unnaturally clean and blue. And Zon is so filthy that the air itself is green.
Yeah, and it's
Um,
always green. I noticed that on a couple of people's. So I was paying a little bit of attention to character design just because I've heard people
mhm,
talk about it recently, and like one of the things they talk about is the most important thing is not color, it's silhouette, right? Everyone needs to have a distinct
yeah.
silhouette so that in the darkness, in the bright light, in all different contexts, you can easily tell them apart. I really noticed it. I was like, oh, what's his name? The guy who's always so mean to Powder in the beginning. It's something Mo something.
Oh, okay. Yeah, not yeah. I don't remember that specific guy's name.
Okay.
Um,
Anyways, that guy, I'm like,
I'm a
this
fake
guy's
fan.
hair is so weird and wild. And then I was looking
Yes.
at it and I was like, oh, it's because it gives him a unique silhouette versus Vi and Powder and Clagger. And I'm like, Clagger is chubby and has the goggles so that you can identify his head and his body. And Powder
Hmm.
is short and Vi is taller. And where do we put this last guy? Oh, well, we'll give him fucking crazy hair, and then you'll be able to tell them apart. The same thing
Yeah.
with Vander and the guy whose name I forgot again, but Vander and Echo's boss, right? They
Yeah.
have very similar silhouettes. So they get two different beards, and one of them is more chubby, is much more of a
Yeah.
stomach. Vander
Benzo.
looks
Yeah.
like, Benzo and Vander, they differ, by their physical build, by their lower
Hmm.
half.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was, I really noticed it. I mean, obviously, I guess any good character designer will do this because I heard it's like, I mean, from what I understand, it's foundational to character
Yeah.
design.
Silhouettes. Yeah, silhouettes are very important in character
But I
design.
noticed it, and one of the things I also noticed is the Undercity dwellers. They tend to wear green. They often have
Yeah.
like a stripe of clothing somewhere on them that's sort of that light mossy green,
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. You're right.
and that's why the Firelights wear
Colors.
green
Yeah.
because the air is
Firelights are.
green, because the underside is green, and
Yeah.
and the topsiders are blue. That's
Yeah.
why the
And
hex tech
even
is
in the
blue.
case, yeah, even in the case of the firelights, you
Mm-hmm.
can argue like the tech that Silco uses to run the underground
Mm-hmm.
is shimmer, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like pink purple, this
Yeah.
magenta that um that is destructive to the
Mm-hmm.
lanes. But the firelights use green tech. Their technology's color is green,
Yeah.
and their technology is not destructive to the lanes.
Yeah.
They use it to actually fight against Silco's shimmer. So
And the masks. This is a slight visual detail I noticed. Echo's mask in the top left or top right corner, it's got a crack in it. and I'm like, oh yeah, this is an essential, and his board is made kind of brass,
Mm-hmm.
not of gold. And I'm like, these are essential visual details that tell us this is not a Pilty, you know?
Yeah.
This is someone who's not, but it's also not quite as run down. The green is more saturated, it's more healthy, so to speak, and the
Yeah.
tech is made out of brass. It's not this eerie purple sort of. So that's kind of what makes them confusing almost. When you see them halfway through the show, you can't quite place them. I mean, they obviously appear more Zonite than Piltover, but even in Zon, you're like, or in the Undercity, you're like, how do these people quite fit in? They seem a little well equipped. They seem a
Yeah.
little cleaner, you know? And it's just a slight change in hue and a few visual
Yeah.
details and a change in material.
Yeah. I'm telling you, Echo is made to not fit. Echo and all his stuff is made to kind of be the exception. But yeah. Other visual storytelling details that I really enjoyed was the evolving architecture style in Piltover. Pretty time skip
Okay.
Piltover is very 1920s Europe, like especially Paris. There are some very clear references to Art Nouveau. But post time skip, the new buildings that come from the Hextech development are much more Art Deco 1930s Manhattan.
Oh,
And
really?
generally
I didn't
1930s.
notice that much of a change at all. That's really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, progress. It's design. I mean, first the new building. All the new buildings are much bigger.
Yeah.
Like the Hex Gate is much bigger than whatever the biggest building at the top of Piltover is. I don't know what that building is called. Probably the Council Palace. But yeah. So, do you have anything else to add there? Because I'm about to go on a long tangent.
The only thing I want to say is, man, Progress Day, that theme was hit so well. I know this is a bit of a side tangent, but one of my favorite games of all times, Borderlands 2. That's the sound of progress, baby. That was such a good, well-executed theme. It's like, yeah, progress, but what is progress? And progress at what cost?
And who benefits from it and who loses in it?
And the debates between Victor and Jace, so amazing. I mean, one of the parts that was the most on the nose, but I really felt like it hit the vibe for me, was on the bridge. When Jace is like, they're dangerous, and he's like, I'm from the Undercity. You know?
Yeah.
And
Jace keeps
moment,
forgetting.
Yeah, exactly. Like, Jace doesn't get it. And you totally notice it in that moment. And I feel like, I don't know, it just seemed genuine to me. It feels like that moment was created and written by someone who's had that moment happen to them in their life. Because, I don't know, I could just totally relate to, I mean, you know, in my life, hey podcast listeners, my family is not from where I live. And so in my life, I've definitely had this concept of dual representation. Back home, I'm considered an outsider, but in the country my parents originate from, which is America, as you can hear from my accent, I'm also considered an outsider, right? And like that moment really hit home for me. I was like, that's it right there. That's what it is, Jace. So
yeah, it's tragic that Jace kind of gets it, or at least gets very close to getting it. I'm not in his head, but he kind of gets it at the very end when he says, you know, we don't have the right, we have forsaken, we have given up our right to rule them.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing we can.
The chance to show our empathy and our whatever has passed.
Our goodwill. Yeah.
And I was just like, oh yeah, it has, buddy. And by the way, can we just talk about you know how, as we were saying, how like the dynamic with Vander and Silco rhymes, and the dynamic with Silco and Echo rhymes? Well, you want to know about a huge rhyming dynamic in this show? They finally get Vander free, and we're dragging him out, and we're about to leave, and Powder blows up everything.
That comes out later. I have that for later.
Yeah,
like we will talk about it.
You want to talk about it now?
If you want to, I mean, it's part of point 3. But if you want to, you can.
I mean, I just thought that was so amazing. The feeling of deep tragedy I feel every time Powder / Jinx, because I really think she is Jinx at that point in the show at the end. Because, you know, she sits in the chair and everything. We have the monologue. I really think she is Jinx at that point and not Powder anymore. everything gets solved, and it looks like we're about, they don't even show us the whole council debate because it's not important. And they all come to a conclusion, and you're like, there's no way they would all agree to this in a sense, but they do agree to it. And then she blows it all up again, and that's that moment I think is maybe a little rushed, but hey, they didn't want to do 45 minutes of intense debates, and I think they thought it was more funny if some of the council members were more goofy than serious.
Yeah.
Like the bald guy who's just like nakedly greedy in every situation. But
he's a little gremlin.
Yeah, but that moment that like things can be solved and the two sides come together and they do talk and there is a solution, and Jinx blows it all up again, and it's just like, that feeling of tragedy is just a trip.
Yeah.
And she does it twice, in the show.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I will talk more about it later because I have,
all right, let's
I have
get
more
into
things
it.
to say. Yeah, but first, my tangent,
Mm-hmm.
or actually, it's part of my second point, visual storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
So I was very interested in going back to the scene. It's a scene in episode 2, so you haven't rewatched it, but Marcus waltzes into the last drop.
Mm-hmm.
And when the cops are going down to kind of make arrests and make a show of force, and Vander has told the people not to fight, that it's not worth it, that the price is too high. And Marcus basically comes into the last drop and humiliates him. And that's very much a turning point for a lot of people, where they leave Vander and go to Silco, right? And he does this thing where he takes his pipe out of Vander's lips and tosses it in this like glass of liquor, lighting it on fire. And then he kind of smashes like, I don't know, 2 lines of dialogue later, he smashes the glass, and the flaming liquor spreads all over the counter. And there's a metaphor there. There's a and so I was interested in like Vander's pipe and the way Vander smokes, because I remember the first time he smokes is the scene he's introduced in, and I remember that's a scene that shows him kind of wielding his power. So I was like, oh, Vander's smoking is a symbol. And then I started going deep into it, and I was like, no, everyone smoking in the Undercity is a symbol for power. So I went through the entire
Silco
show.
smokes that cigar.
Yeah, I went through the entire show, and I found every single time I could find anyone smoking. No one smokes that I know. I didn't see any important characters smoke in a scene in Piltover. So here is starting from the beginning. All the times I found, and I think the pattern will emerge. The first character we see smoke is Vander, when he's introduced as the Hound of the Underworld, and he resolved a tiff in his tavern, the last drop, demonstrating his authority. And he's smoking in a very calm way. Then he smokes again when he's trying to convince the citizens of the Undercity to not go to war with Piltover when they send enforcers in. And then people listen to him. He's smoking calmly. Then the one I mentioned, enforcers come waltzing into the last drop, humiliating him. Marcus takes his the pipe right from his lips, drops it in the glass. Blah blah blah. The last time Vander smokes calmly after this scene, it's the scene where he is giving himself up as a scapegoat to Grayson. It's the scene she smokes while Grayson acknowledges his authority as the leader of the lanes. And Vander also passes on his torch by declaring Benzo his successor. So that is kind of his last act of authority, where he's recognized as a leader, and that's also his last smoke. In episode 3, when he has been captured, we see Sevika smoke a cigarette as Vander's being dragged around. And I have more to say about Sevika and all of this and the power she wields. But she's kind of the kingmaker. She plays the role of kingmaker in the Undercity, in Zon. And so here, Sevika was one of the people who was on the side of Vander in the beginning of the season, but by episode 3 she has flipped.
Mm-hmm.
and there you can see her smoke. Then we have the time skip, and the
Mm-hmm.
first time we see a character smoking, and it's Silco smoking a cigar while he wields his power over Marcus, reminding him of his corruption.
Mm-hmm.
Notably, Silco never smokes around Jinx. That's another thing I noticed. He never smokes around Jinx, but he smokes when he's
He's
with
never in
Marcus.
control
He's never
when
in
Jinx is
control.
in the room. Is there
Yeah,
anything
exactly.
so
Yeah.
undoing as a daughter,
Is there
Vander?
anything as undoing as a daughter? Yeah. Then we see Sevika again briefly. When in episode 5, Vi goes to beat her up the first time. And there, obviously, she is in the lanes. She's not with Silco, and she is the most lethal assassin and enforcer in the lanes. Obviously, she is very much the person in control right after Silco in the lanes. And yeah, she's always smoking a cigarette. She doesn't smoke as big and visible
Yeah.
things like a cigar or a pipe, but she always is.
It's because she's second in command, baby.
Yeah, exactly. But she's important, and we kind of find that when she talks to Finn. When Finn is the slimy idiot with a golden jaw.
Yeah.
Like this scene is specific when Finn has expressed his distaste for Silco. It's after the scene where Silco chokes them all, and he still comes back to try to flip Sevika. And throughout the scene, Sevika is smoking because Sevika is the one wielding the power of Kingmaker. She has basically made Vander fall, and she has the power to make Silco fall. And in the beginning, she is kind of belittling him, and the scene really frames him as sort of being pathetic and really bad at this. His attempts at being coy are very obvious, but then he makes a good point. And at that very moment, he starts smoking as well. And Sevika starts taking him seriously. Finally, when Finn tries his coup, he sits in Silco's office talking to him, with Sevika standing behind Silco. Yeah. And like Sevika, you can see like she's ready to strike. And Finn is kind of playing with this lighter, playfully scorching the edge of Silco's table as the tension builds. Then Sevika obviously strikes Finn instead of Silco. Silco asks if she was tempted, and she says not for a worm like him. Silco nods, takes a cigar from his ashtray, covered in Jinx drawings, I would add, puts it in his mouth, and Sevika takes Finn's lighter and lights a cigar for Silco while uttering the words, "But he won't be the last."
Yeah.
And that's how I spent a lot of time looking at smoking in Arcane.
Well, I have one more for you, which is but it's an unnamed background character. But the first time we go to the Undercity, after the intro credits roll in episode 1, we pan past a guy with a little pipe, and he's smoking it, and it's not good. Clearly, he's not enjoying himself. And then his buddy taps him on the shoulder, and they both stand up and then walk out of frame. Obviously, that's not really a part of the visual metaphor you're talking about, but it also means that
I'm sure there are people smoking in the background at some point, but like I'm talking about,
yeah, but that's what I'm saying, right? It's not just it's not too obvious, right? In some way, you know what I mean? Like it's not okay exclusively in this universe. Whenever someone smokes, it means this and that's going to happen. It's just when main characters do it, it means something, and I think it's interesting.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that when Silco takes over the underground and we see the last drop when it's a club, there are people in there inhaling drugs, notably through these gas mask huffers, and not a cigar or a pipe or a cigarette or something. So I think they were intentional and careful with that.
Yeah, I really think so. It was crazy. Like the more I looked into it, I was like, oh my god.
Yeah,
I started going only like vendors. What?
Like that's like the culmination of it, right? The moment she picks up the lighter, hands it to Silco, and he lights the cigar with it.
No. She doesn't hand him the lighter. She lights it for him.
Yeah. Okay. Well, my point is she picks up the lighter and gives him the light from this guy, right? And it's he smokes one more time. I don't know if you mentioned it. He smokes one more time. When he's sitting in front of the pipe of Vander, when he's sitting in front of the statue of Vander, I believe he's smoking Vander's pipe. When he
Is
says,
he?
"Is there anything so undoing as a daughter?"
I think he's drinking there. He's not smoking because he
You're
pours
right.
one for
He's
him.
drinking, and the statue is smoking.
The
That's what it
statue is
is.
for sure smoking.
The statue is smoking, and he isn't. Right? He's drinking. So
Yeah.
I think there's a metaphor there too. I think there's a metaphor too, because he's saying, right? He's saying, you know what, Vander? In memory, after the fact, you were right. And so, in memory, after the fact, Vander is smoking, and he is not.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, yeah, that was my little essay on the symbolism of smoking.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, do you have anything to add to the visual storytelling thing? I'm kind of done with visual storytelling. You can probably keep going and going and going, but that's
Yeah,
the
I mean,
stuff
we
I
could
wanted
talk
to
about
talk
this
about.
show forever, but I think we've made our point pretty well.
Yeah. Okay. I brought up the scene that we're talking about again, just
Mm-hmm.
to check.
Mm-hmm.
He's not smoking.
Yeah.
The Vander statue, I mean. Oh, say no! Wait. Okay, he's not smoking, but he's holding his pipe.
Yeah,
So
he's holding his
I
pipe,
guess,
and the pipe glows.
yeah,
It's
the
part of the
pipe
statue
glows.
that the pipe glows. So I mean,
Yeah,
he is smoking. It's just not currently in his mouth,
yeah, it's not in
but
his mouth. Yeah,
he's
I
holding the
just
lit
needed the
pipe.
right angle. Yeah, I just needed the right
Yeah.
angle. Okay, but yeah. So yeah, I rest my case. And then my final point is the recurring narrative motifs. So I'm not talking about
Mm-hmm.
themes. I'm talking about repetitions of things that happen, and that's what you already kind of talked about with
Yeah.
Jinx. But she's actually my last point because she's the strongest one.
Mm-hmm.
I will start with actually talking about Vander and Silco's arcs. But actually, no, we already talked about that. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
just to recapitulate, in the beginning, Vander is considered weak for his attachment to his children, and his power is called into question. And by the end, Silco's power is called into question because of his attachment to Jinx.
Yeah.
And in the end,
The show
Silco,
rhymes a lot.
yeah, the show rhymes a lot. But I think also I will add that like these recurring narrative motifs, things happen again, but they happen differently, and
Yeah.
the differences highlight like change and differences between
Character growth.
characters.
Yeah.
Yeah, or character growth or character difference. For example, Vander is
Character development.
self-sacrificing. Yeah. Yeah, not only like no, but I mean differences between characters. Like Vander is self-sacrificing in the name of peace and his children.
Mm-hmm.
He he only resorts to violence when he has to defend his children from the immediate threat of a huge hulking monster.
Mm-hmm.
But he does not seek war. Silco seeks war, like outright. He says, we will not do it the peaceful Pilty way. If you want my daughter, come and get her. We will do it my way. We'll do it the warlike way. But then obviously both of them die for the death of their children ultimately.
I mean, with Jinx's case, right? Like in the beginning, it's an accident. In the end, it's totally on purpose, right? That shows.
That's yeah. You keep skipping ahead, man.
Well,
but yes,
that's the one I remember.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Another one is Victor and Jace. In the first act, Jace gets close to jumping from the window of his blown up apartment when his life is completely ruined. And Victor prevents him, stops him from doing that. And then Victor almost jumps from the side of, I suppose, like an academy building.
Yeah, it's like a sewer almost. It's like
it looks like a sewer, but like it looks like it's a part of a big building. And Jace, I think it's the sewer that leads out of Piltover and then gets all toxic and screwed up and flows into Zaun. And it's where he was playing as a kid. So I think that water flow leads to where he was playing as a kid. Where
I thought that was also the facial acting and animation that was done in that scene was great because he's like, "Am I interrupting something?" And then on his face, I feel like you could just see Jace knows. Jace knows what was just going on. He knows that he just interrupted something and what he interrupted.
Yeah, and Jace was interrupted by Victor from jumping, and Victor says, "Am I interrupting something?" So it's literally the same line. but obviously there are differences. The first one is that like Jace was kind of like at the bottom of his academic career and prestige in life. And Victor had just killed someone. But he was arguably jumping because of the triumph of his success. His scientific achievement is what is driving him to jump.
Yeah, I mean, Victor has that line where he says, something along the lines of we lost our way.
In the pursuit of greatness, we failed to do good.
Yeah, exactly. And he talks about how, we got everything we wanted, but we lost our way. And that's the difference, right? Jace didn't get everything academically that he wanted, but Victor lost his way.
Yeah. Victor also, like, he wants to help him develop Hextech when he saves Jace from jumping. Like, it's an uplifting scene. The second one is like, it's uplifting in the fact that Victor doesn't die. But it ends on a dark note. Yeah, it ends on a very dark note on destroying the hex core. In the pursuit of greatness, we failed to do good. So the first one scene is kind of the birth of Hextech, and then the last one is their declaration to stop what has been so far the culmination of Hextech, arguably, or more of a synthesis of Hextech and the drug one. But I would still argue it's more Hextech than
Shimmer.
What is it called? Shimmer. Thank you. Yeah. But yeah. And then finally Jinx.
That chaotic webby orb sort of thing that's left. That thing is a lot in the trailer. That thing's gonna be relevant.
I can imagine. Like, I think that Victor will very much like go back on his word on wanting to destroy it after what happens at the end of the show.
It's very odd. So it's very odd because in the trailer, it almost seems like a multiversal thing. Because at two different points, we see a Vi who has slightly darker hair and wears a black leather vest that has two wolf heads sort of flared out like eagle's wings on the back of it with red fabric stitching. And in the one, she's in an arena, and I think in the other one, she's briefly fighting. But it doesn't look like our Vi. It really looks like alternate reality Vi. So I know nothing about the lore. I'm sure there's actually, we could just simply look up the lore and we would have a pretty good idea of like what's probably going to happen next. But I think that hex core, because here's also a reason. They show the hex core for a second and then they cut to a scene of what looks like a star-mantled figure in space, with this big cosmic robe over it, holding its hand out, and in its hand is this device. And I'm like, I mean, if that's not a metaphor for multiverse, I don't know what is. Or some sort of creator figure, or some sort of ability to warp reality.
I don't want to go too much into that. Yeah, I don't know. I wonder. We'll see what happens. I can also see that it just like they use the hex core to save Victor's life, and then the hex core starts messing him up even more after the explosion. I don't know. I don't want to speculate too much, honestly. I'm trying actively not to. I just want to see what they come up with. So I don't want to be disappointed if I come up with an idea that I think is really cool and then they don't do it. But yeah, so Jinx. I just wrote down a line for Jinx here that I just thought, it's not a line for her, it's a line I wrote that feels like her. It's not a mental illness if I'm doing it on purpose. It's a creative choice.
Yeah, I think Jinx is a really interesting character. I mean, like, you just want to hate Jinx, but you can't. You can. I remember when I first watched the show, I really was pissed with Jinx, and I was like, Vi is basically 100% right, and Jinx is 100% wrong. I rewatched it. I was like, no, I don't think that take is right anymore. My opinion might be a hot take, but my opinion is, look, okay, so inequality and violence and the dynamics that exist between Piltover and Zaun cause social unrest and instability, and they cause chaos. And Jinx is that chaos. And a child who, at a very young age, saw both of their parents murdered and developed severe separation issues, and then was directly responsible for their next found family, and was then encouraged and cultivated in this dynamic by their next found family. Like, is Ted Bundy a bad guy? Obviously, and she's kind of like that. But when you find out that he was, he had diagnosable mental issues that came back from being beat all of the time as a kid, you're kind of like, I get how it happened, right? So it's not that Jinx is to me, Jinx is sure, you can hate Jinx, but Jinx is the inevitable product of what everyone else is doing. And it feels to me like when the show starts, the damage is already done,
A lot of damage is done. There's a huge difference, I feel like, in how Vi and Powder dealt with the fact that when they lost their parents, which is due to the fact that they were such different ages.
Yeah.
And that Vi had to grow up very fast because she had to become Jinx's big sister. Well, I feel like you could argue that, Powder was infantilized a lot by the others, and also has remained more childlike all the way to Jinx.
So it's not that you can morally defend these people at all, right? But you can, on a second rewatching, I'm like, I 100% understand how this happened. And I started to get more and more the feeling, I was like, I'm realizing this isn't about two sides and who's right. I don't think anybody, when Vander dies by that moment in the show, I don't think anybody's wrong. I don't think Vi is wrong for the way she reacts. I don't think Powder is wrong for what she did. Right? Then when she becomes an adult and she starts making these choices more intentionally, then Jinx is more at fault, obviously. The more adult and culpable you become, the more adult and culpable you are, But it really, for me, exemplified this dynamic of I understand 100% how this kind of character develops. I understand how the development of this type of character is inevitable in the circumstances. Not that it was inevitable for Powder, but that somebody like Jinx would rise up and become an issue in the Undercity. Inevitable, right? And I just felt like I had the second time around watching it, I felt like, and I think maybe I've also just developed as a person in the last 3 years, where I just felt like I had a much deeper understanding of it. And I'm like, what I felt like, and obviously people can disagree with me, but what I felt like was, what we need to do is find a way to heal these two people and not figure out which one of these two people is wrong. Which one of these is in the wrong and deserves to be punished and deserves to be I'm like, no, you need to figure out how to heal this rift, because this conflict is pointless and isn't helping anybody. This is,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things that are so heartbreaking about Jinx is that, or that is so difficult to kind of deal with, is that the Powder that is in Vi's head, that Vi has pictured in her head for years. Obviously, she's gone, right? Jinx is not that anymore, and it's kind of hard to see how what a low self-esteem Powder used to have, and how she was kind of always screwing up, and how competent and reassured and confident she is as Jinx under Silco's mentorship. She is thriving in the most toxic way possible, but she is thriving. And we don't see a lot of her, but we can see that kind of obviously she has a very dependent relationship. She depends a lot on praise and on
connection,
because as soon as the connection, but also she has this need to prove her worth all the time because of how she was treated as a child, where as soon as Silco is hey, you messed up with the Shimmer cargo in episode 4, she means oh, he thinks we're not able to do, he thinks we're not capable, well, we'll show him, we'll go steal a gem and blow
she constantly
something.
needs to prove her utility.
Exactly. But Silco does that. But Silco generally, Silco says, Jinx is perfect. He's not trying to put her down. She's not saying you're not skilled. He's saying, your behavior is you're making a mess. But even then, when he gets angry because she blows up Progress Day, he still recognizes when she gives him the hex gem.
Yeah.
He calms down and acknowledges that. So it's kind of like, oh my god, yeah, Silco, by the end you can really see Silco is genuine in his love for Jinx, and he is letting her thrive and acknowledging her worth in the most toxic way possible. But that's more than what Vi is doing, because Vi is kind of infantilizing Jinx. Even on her
Yeah.
back, she's like, like, oh no, you don't know who you are. You're not Jinx, you're Powder. You're not Jinx, you're Powder.
Yeah.
And Vi just cannot get over this. The fact
I
that
think it's absolutely a situation where you easily fall into like this two sides dynamic and like who's on the right side and who's in the right and who's in the wrong. But the true answer is that this mentally unwell, violent individual needs to be arrested and rehabilitated and not shot in the fucking head. You know what I mean? Like, and so I think Echo, that's the moment where Echo flinches, because it's like, yeah, this person, what they're doing is wrong, but they're not fully in control of themselves. Clearly, they're hallucinating and don't have a firm grasp on reality. And we understand that she has experienced things in her life that leave bona fide psychological scars that impair your ability to adjust naturally to society, and she's in a very difficult society to begin with. And so for me, I think the enlightenment was not, oh, this side is wrong and that side is right. It was like, the means of one side is not killing innocents and is therefore morally superior, sure. But the way, I don't care about any of that. What I care is the solution to the problem. And the solution to the problem is you need to stop trying to kill each other. You need to get this person professional help. Jinx needs to be put away and given an environment where she can learn to form healthy attachments and get whatever meds she needs in order to not hallucinate and not be, on the brink of violence at all times. And that was, for me, a big level up. Like, the second time around, and after 3 years, she was much less annoying. I had much more empathy. I'm like, this is a child.
I can't believe that the first time you watched it, still, you were like, Jinx is wrong, Vi is right.
I was just like, fuck Jinx, man. I was like, you little shit. Like, she gets mad at you one time when you're 5 years old, and all of a sudden, you have scars for life, and I can't fucking believe that you're trying to get off on the I'm morally justified train when you're killing civilians, But like, yeah. But the development was like, the development for me, the level up for me with time was, it's not about who's right and wrong. It's about solving the problem. Obviously, killing civilians is wrong, but this woman is disturbed, and shooting her in the head is not the right way to solve the problem. Capturing her, arresting her, putting her in an institution where she can actually then flourish and grow and heal, that is the solution. And so that intro, the intro of the show where Jinx is shooting at Vi and Vi is trying to punch Jinx in the face, I'm like, this is the problem too. This is also the problem. The problem is Jinx's behavior, but also how you're trying to solve Jinx's behavior. And I just have more empathy for that kid. Like, on a second rewatch, I have more empathy for that kid.
Yeah, she is. I mean, the first time I watched already, I remember always thinking like, "Oh my god, stop fighting, please!
Yeah,
just get along. Oh my god, no, don't hurt each other."
Yeah.
So on the first third, you already pointed out that they both end on the explosion caused by Jinx. I will add some more to that. So in the first third, Jinx, or Powder at the time, she's a mess. She mainly screws things up. The first thing of the show's events are set in motion by her causing a massive explosion and stealing a hex stone, basically accidentally. And then the act concludes with her causing an explosion on purpose, but accidentally killing most of her family with it. So in the first one, she causes multiple explosions. They are on. She steals the gem. She steals the stone. I don't think it's called a gem at that point, because it's the gem when they control it. And like she kills
the
Vanda.
unstabilized hex thing.
Yeah, and she accidentally kills her family. Right when the problem, the solution, the problem had been solved. And in the second act, Jinx also sets the event of the season of the season in motion by stealing the gem, the gem at this point from the from Progress Day, and she also causes a massive explosion, but this time on purpose.
Yep.
And then at the end of the show, when the situation is almost solved, she purposefully kills her enemies with her Hextech weapon.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, you already talked about the explosion, but I also wanted to point out the highlight that both parts of the show begin with her stealing the gem and begin with her blowing something up. But in the second one, obviously, she's thriving as Jinx in the most dysfunctional, toxic way, and her agency is much higher. She's much more competent, so she's doing all these things in purpose. And so
and without diving too much into it as well, this really feels to me like someone who, at least from my perspective, right, gets some elements of history, right? Like, technology is disruptive to the status quo. It always has been, especially a big, new, powerful power source. And in this case, it mixes with the chaos and frankly, madness that is created by extreme imbalances of wealth and unstable political systems. To create, in our case, one agent who we identify with and, has much more of a narrative. But, like, this is how a terrorist organization is formed, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is how an insurgency, this is how a revolution is formed. It doesn't just have to be terrorism. Maybe that was, But my point is, like, this is how military uprisings are formed. This is how violence, unnecessary revolution, unnecessary base violence to change, you know what I mean, is created. Because if Silco or if Shimmer, and I don't think it is, but if we accept the premise that Shimmer is the base violence necessary for change, then Jinx is the unnecessary violence that comes with change,
Yeah, absolutely. She literally blows the change, the peaceful change up.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And sometimes you're like looking at a history book and you're screaming like, "Why can't you all get along?" And it's like, well, because this is why. Because it's just people are unhealthy. It's too far gone. You killed my parents. I can't just forget about that.
Yeah.
Like and Echo is the inverse of that, right? You were once my friend. I can't just forget about that. But things are too far gone. You can't just find a solution at the 11th hour and be like, "Oh, okay, it's all good," and we all sort of watch. Sometimes you set things in motion, and then the violence is there, and you can't stop it. And isn't that the entitlement? On a side note, isn't that the entitlement of Piltover? The idea that they can control everything, even the chaos that their system caused. Like, we can still fix this. We're still in charge, so we'll just vote them all free. It's like, that's not even your choice anymore, buddy. That's not even your choice anymore. Jinx made the choice for you.
Yeah, it's definitely like too little, too late. It's like,
it's just so arrogant.
It's funny
because they still have control of the situation at that point.
Yeah, But at that point, at least from the point of view of Jace, he had gone and negotiated with Silco, and then he had gone to negotiate with his people. So, I feel like at that point, at least from the point of view of Jace, at least, he has spoken to the leader of the other side, and the other side has shown up and kind of recognized him as a person to speak with, to talk to.
Exactly.
Jinx.
But that's the thing. He's wrong, right? Is that Silco doesn't represent the entire... It just shows to me... It feels to me like it's a great way to add to the characterization that Piltover is out of touch and doesn't understand what's going on in the Undercity and overestimates their own capabilities and importance and underestimates the Undercity's capabilities and importance.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting angle. I don't know. I don't want to go too deep into it now, but like that's definitely a new angle that I hadn't thought of.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's kind of the final point on the recurring narrative elements. Yeah. And yeah, so I think these are things that I could think of that Arcane uses for its narrative efficiency, having this sort of tight web of character and plot points that can easily be compared, contrasted, juxtaposed.
Yeah.
And then
concise visual language.
It's harder to find a main or side character that you can't compare somehow, and then a tight visual language that is never redundant or used in a it never feels like, okay, I'll say, like, it never feels like this show in general makes kind of like not, I don't even want to say wasteful choices, because I'm sure you can point one or two, but like I feel like they never presume stuff. They always choose to do things a
Yeah.
certain way. Like as you said, like in the last drop, no one's smoking.
Yeah.
And you could easily have
It,
someone
it feels
smoke
like,
there. You could
exactly. It
easily
feels
just
like
have
in
someone
general,
smoke.
nothing is just, there's no oatmeal. None of it's
Yeah.
filler. All of it's been chosen specifically. And I mean, obviously, probably not true for the entire show, but in general, that's the feeling you get. That it's all handcrafted. If you're seeing something, it's there for a reason, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, and everything, like even the fact that Silico's like stuff is all scratched over and colored by Jinx. Like
Yeah.
her drawings are everywhere.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's kind of it from my side. As we
Yeah,
said,
it's
I
a good
think we
show.
can talk about this for much longer, and I'm sure that we'll have a part 2 or part 3 to this. Also for a pilot, for a pilot, I must say, 1 hour and 20 minutes. We may want to reconsider
Well,
what
maybe.
our baseline is.
um, I want to, before we sign off, I want to ask you one question that goes in the other direction,
Yes.
which is because I have an idea in my head for something that I noticed. What is something you think the show does not handle as well as it could, or something you feel is missing or not quite done right? Maybe a scene you didn't like.
I think, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's not even something I didn't like, but after looking at all of this, and
Mm-hmm.
after looking at how much they set up in the first half that they paid off in the second half,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's surprising that we don't see Finn in the first pre-time skip. It's
Mm-hmm.
surprising that Finn is not like a kid um, with in Silico's factory of drugs, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and also, I found I don't know how they'll evolve that, but like the dialogue. That there's one that I kind of find like Victor and Singe.
Mm-hmm.
I find all the kind of like philosophizing about science and
Mm-hmm.
sacrifice there. Um, I found that a little bit like self-congratulatory and at least so far a bit shallow.
Mm-hmm.
I
We'll see
haven't
where that
seen.
goes.
Yeah, we'll see where that goes. I suppose. I'm not mad that they didn't pay off everything now, but I
Yeah.
wasn't as impressed with the dialogue there as I was in
Yeah.
other places. What's your thing?
The the one thing I noticed when watching the show, coming from the perspective of, some of the history I've been listening to recently, was one of the things the show does not demonstrate well is the means of production. So a big element of the show is the exploitation of the Undercity, and I think the vibe I get from the show is that Zahn is poor and Piltover is rich. Topside is nice, the Undercity sucks. What I felt was sometimes, and maybe, also it's just because I watched a few of the episodes, but what I felt was a little bit missing is, at least in real life, the way it would be, is that the Undercity sucks so that Topside can be nice. All the shit that exists in Topside is being made in the Undercity. Like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not saying that this is true in the lore, but like in real life, that's what it would be, right?
Yeah.
The exploited exist for a reason. They have a function and a utility. And it seems often in the show like they're just kind of this abscess that Piltover has and doesn't quite like. But I think sometimes, or often, this kind of inequality and exploitation is more sinister to some degree in our world and in historical context, where it's, the exploited are there because they're useful. They are the engine powering the luxury and the wealth of the people who are in control. And whether that's a monarch or presiding over serfs, or that's capitalists in presiding over workers, but the exploitation or misery of one group is not accidental. That's a feature. It's a feature.
Yeah.
It's and that I felt like I wish we could have seen maybe in the Undercity at one point or another, perhaps a factory or people cranking out some of the gear that we see used topside, because that would have just added an extra touch of like that I would have just felt like, yeah, that feels right. That feels appropriate to the sort of historical context and the kind of real life situation that we tend to see in these kinds of contexts, is that the poor parts
Yeah.
of city feed the rich parts of the city.
Yeah. I will not will not disagree with you there. I will point out that I think it's made very clear that like all of the trash and all of the pollution of Piltover goes
Yeah.
to Zon.
Yeah.
Like I
But it's not
think
quite the same thing as
it's not the same thing. That's what I'm
yeah.
saying. I'm not disagreeing with you, but I feel
Yeah.
like at least partially the idea that like Piltover is so clean because Zon is so dirty.
Yeah.
Or Zon is so dirty because Piltover is so clean. I think that message is conveyed. But yeah, I mean, the show does so much world building. There's so much.
Yeah. I'm also
I
not sure
think
it would fit in, and the show is dealing with more personal conflicts. Overall, I would still say to our listeners, to our Voyagers, watch Arcane season 1.
watch Arcane. Watch Arcane season 1 and
If
watch
you're
Arcane
even a
season 2.
little bit interested in like fantasy, sci-fi, magitech settings, if you're even a little bit interested in the early modern sort of industrial historical context in which a lot of the revolutions that shaped the modern day took place, and if you're just interested in good character development and a well-written show, watch the show. Although if you've been listening up until this point, what the hell are you doing? We told you to leave.
Well,
we said there'd be spoilers. Now you know it. But I guess a second rewatching, as I was saying, is also good of this show.
no, a secondary. I mean, I watched it several times. I keep finding things. I'm sure that if I watch it one more time, I would have more to. I would have new things in my head. But yeah, no, it's interesting which like genres would you put this in? Like I was writing it up and I was like, this is like a crime drama, but it's also political intrigue, but it's also like action adventure.
Yeah.
And
It's a lot of things.
there's wealth inequality, there's technological progress, there's civil unrest, and there's personal drama and trauma and mental illness. And yeah. To sum it up, a masterclass in efficient storytelling.
So how would you rate the show? 1 to 10.
I think I have to give it a 10.
Yep.
Like
kind of
I don't
agree.
think
Like,
I don't think that like any complaints feel like not nitpicking or like not complaining that the show isn't something that it's not. And my complaint about the Victor dialogue and Singe, it's such a minor part of it, and we haven't even seen season 2, so maybe it will all make sense.
yeah,
I'm
I
not.
mean, also maybe season 2 is a huge disappointment, but I'm willing to give season 1 a 10. Otherwise, I don't know what I'm reserving that number for. Better shows probably exist, but they're marginally enough better that they can also be 10s. So, to make the scale work, if I think like a 5 is like worth your time, then this show's a 10.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Do you have anything to plug?
Do I have anything to plug? Well, have you heard about a little movie called The Wild Robot?
I've heard trailers about it. Yes.
Yeah. It's a DreamWorks animated movie that is out right now. Everybody has been giving it a lot of praise, and I'm inclined to agree with them. I feel like I feel like people may be losing their mind over it a little bit too much, but it's a very good movie.
That's cool.
It's yeah, and I think it's told in a very beautiful way. It's gorgeous. It's a gorgeous movie. I absolutely recommend watching it in a movie theater. And the reason I
Cool.
say that it's a bit overhyped is that I think it has some pacing issues. I think it's not. I think it's not. I think the plot is not always as strong as it could be, and the finale left a little bit of like the feeling in my mouth that I had rewritten this finale.
Well,
to make
maybe
it.
you can give us the in-depth look on the next episode.
We'll see.
I'm gonna plug voting. If you live in the USA and you are eligible to vote, please vote. And I'm just going to take the mask off, right? Please vote for the one that didn't stop peaceful transfer of power in 200 years of the American Republic. People died on that day. Let's not have that happen again. Democracy helped, but not for lack of trying. So please vote, and vote like your democracy depends on it, because it does. And it would be a shame if it fell apart. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it would be a shame.
Alrighty. Yeah, so that just about does it for our first episode. We hope you liked
My
it. If
movie
you
is
want,
nice too. The robot movie is important too, in its own
oh
way.
yeah, I mean, of course it's important. If you want more, you can find us on youtube.com/afriendlyorbit, all one word, as well as Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If you happen to have any feedback, any astral echoes to share with us, you can email us at afriendlyorbit@gmail.com. All one word.
All right, Ceres. I'll talk to you later. And to all of our fellow Voyagers, we will catch you out there amongst the stars.